a throw that came and left a quivering tree, gave room for an old, tired one unfilled, at peace, his subconscious moonless gaze, to raise his head and look for absent light, straining closed eyes of vanished memory, like one who searches for a bygone self, and only meets the corpse of a desire. This is still the description of the world created by oblivion and becoming conscious, the aspiration. Its origin being the perfect truth consciousness, in spite of its division, in spite of its obscurity, it still contained the seed of consciousness and something like the want to return to it. That is the aspiration of the Christ. The want to return it, that is the worst desire in the language of Savitri, in the phrase of Savitri, that is the worst desire. It was as though even in this most profound, even in this ultimate dissolution school, there lurked an unremembering entity, survivor of a slain and buried past, condemned to resume the effort and to pang, reviving in another frustrated world. The origin of light and consciousness, which it carried in itself, could not die because it is the seed, the very essence of immortality. And that began picking up. An unshaped consciousness desired light, and a blank prescience yearned towards a distant change. It is the very beginning of the aspiration waking up in the inconscient to return to its conscious origin. It is the starting point, the first moment of evolution, the evolution that is the turning back of the inconscient to return to consciousness, as if a childlike finger laid on a cheek, reminded of the endless need of things to the heedless mother of the universe, an infant longing crushed the somber vow. Insensibly, somewhere a breeze began, a long, low line of hesitating hue, like a vague smile tempting to desert on, troubled the far rim of life's obscure sleep. This is the waking of consciousness that Shivandu compares as to a smile. So it is a smile, Surya. He says, hesitating here, that is the first beginning of consciousness. It is like a very pale light, and he compares it to vague smile tempting, a vague smile tempting a desert heart. It was like a very faint light at the border of the obscure sleep of life, arrived from the other side of boundlessness. An eye of deity appears to the dumb, a scout and reconnaissance from the sun is seemed amid a heavy cosmic rain, the torpor of a sick and weary world, to see for a spirit, soul and desolate, too fallen to recollect forgotten pain. The first vision of consciousness he compares to an eye of deity. First vision of consciousness is an eye of deity, piercing through the dumb deeps. This look is like a scout of reconnaissance from the sun. That is the symbol of consciousness. In the very cosmic ray, the torpor of a sick and weary world, too fallen to recollect forgotten brain, that is too unconscious to remember that conscious is intervening in a mindless universe. His message crept through the reluctant earth, calling the adventure of consciousness and joy, and conquering nature's disillusioned realm, compelled renewed consent to see and feel. That is just coming out from the complete unconsciousness of the stone and unreal towards the beginning of life. And this compelled renewed consent to see and feel. And then it says, its message crept. This is the first tending of thought into the world. A thought was sown and unsounded void, a sense was born within the darkness, a memory quivered in the heart of time, as if a soul long dead were moved to live, but the oblivion and the the succeed, the fall, had blotted the crowded tablets to the palm, and all that were destroyed must be rebuilt, and old experience laboured out once more. And then a thought was sown in a sounded void, a sense was born within darkness dim, a memory quivered in the heart of time, as if a soul long dead were formed to live. That is the memory of the origin. It has the origin wherefrom it has come. Then he described the resistance. But the oblivion that succeeds the fall had blotted the crowded tablets of the palm, and all that was destroyed must be rebuilt, and old experience laboured out once more. In front of all seems to have been destroyed. It is only a seeming because it is latent behind the unconscious. All can be done if the God touch is there. All can be done if the God touch is there. So this is line summarizing the entire sequence of what has happened. A very aphoristic line, very famous line which is used everywhere. All can be done if the God touch is there. And then the comforting assurance, all can be done if the God touch is there. Now, what Savitri has written here is God touch. God, G is small. God touch is there. It's not big G. In second version of Savitri, 1954-1972, they have made it capital G. Now they are restored it back to small g. Obviously it is to be a small g. Because, not just because Savitri has written it, of course Savitri has written it as a small g, small God, because it will be too heavy, too difficult, too even destructive for us if the big God touch is coming to us. It has a small little touch only, you see. Little, just a kind of prompting, little pushing thing, you see. So it has to be a small God touch, you see. It's enough, you see. Now all can be done if the God touch is there. Now, of course there is that if important. It is not that the God touch will always act. There are conditions for the God touch to act. And if those conditions are fulfilled, then all can be done. It demands certain kind of a readiness, preparedness, receptivity for the God touch to act. It is not just that God comes and touches and you go. No, you have to be kind of ready for that thing. You have to be ready. All can be done with the God. We shall see this in more detail. And then the assuring oil. So, in short, Savitri is giving all the process of rebuilding the consciousness in the unconscious. He calls the separation the fall. That is truly a fall of consciousness into unconsciousness. And now he describes how the message sent from the Supreme to repair the harm done wakens up the consciousness as by a kind of imperative influence to begin to climb up back to the Supreme Consciousness. This ascent is the evolution that will make so many thousands and thousands of years. But so, see, this ascent is the evolution will take thousands and thousands of years. So even if there is a God touch, see, you can't cut short these thousands and thousands of years, you see. But for a very long time it was not measured. It is only when mind took the form in man that time began to be measured. And before, who can know how long it took to wake up from the complete unconsciousness? He is speaking of the starting point of this evolution. He is speaking from starting point to this evolution. Mother says, of course, there was nobody there to record at that time. He says, long before it took weight, means the mind was not there. So there was nobody, I was not there to pray, to know all the details at that time. Because she says, I awoke when the human tribe appeared on earth. And Savitri too awoke amid this human tribe. You see that. And then he says, all can be done with the God touches. Beautiful. A hope stole in a hardly dare to be amid the nights forlorn, indifferent, as if solicited in an alien world, with timid and hazardous instinctive grace, orphaned and driven out to speak a whole, an errant marvel with no place to live, into a far off nook of heaven there came a slow, miraculous, gaseous, dim appeal, the persistent thrill of a transfiguring touch persuaded the inert black quietude and beauty and wonder disturbed the things of God. We may remember that she happened to push together quietude, beauty, wonder. They seem to be at the beginning of the manifestation of the divine inconscient beauty, quietude, wonder. It started like that, quietude, beauty and wonder. A wandering hand of pale enchanted light that glowed along the fading moment's brink, fixed with gold panel and opal sentence, a gate of dreams ajar on mystery's worlds. One loosened corner windowing hidden thing, forced the world's blind immensity to light. The darkness faded and slipped like a falling cloak from the reclining body of a god. So this is a very original image, reclining body of God, and his robe is falling down, you see. That is how the darkness has spread. Then to the pallet rift there seemed at first hardly enough for a trickle from the sun outpoured the revelation of the flame. A brief perpetual sign trickled above. A brief perpetual sign trickled above. A brief perpetual sign trickled above. What a line, you see. A brief perpetual sign trickled above. Perfect pentametric line also. What is a sign? A brief perpetual sign trickled above. What is that sign? Shaven to symbol. It is the most poetic way of describing the waking of consciousness to invisible things. But why this waking up? What has created or given birth to this waking up? Shaven says, the darkness failed and slipped like a falling cloak from the reclining body of a god. A god has come down upon earth to wake it up to the inner consciousness. We could say that this was the first avatar. It is the coming down of the first avatar to wake up the earth to consciousness. That is to bring an intensity of consciousness and realization into this inconscient world. That is obviously the description of the appearance of the first avatar. It starts from that because of he puts then to the pallet drift that seemed at first hardly enough for a trickle to the sun, outpour the revelation of the flame, the revelation of the flame, and the brief perpetual sign flickered above. This is the sign of the avatar, you see, coming down upon earth. We will listen some of these recitations in mother's own voice.
It was the hour before the gods awake. Across the path of the divine event, the huge foreboding mind of night, alone in her unlit temple of eternity, lay stretched immobile upon silence marked, almost one felt opaque, impenetrable, in the somber symbol of her eyeless muse, the abyss of the unbodied infinite, a fathomless zero occupies the world. It's what the vain, enormous trance of space, its formless stupor without mind or life, a shadow spinning through a soulless void, thrown back once more into unthinking dream. Earth, wheeled abandoned in the hollow gulfs, forgetful of her spirit and her fate. Then something in the inscrutable darkness stirred, a nameless movement, an unthought idea, insistent, dissatisfied, without a name, something that wished but knew not how to be. 'Tis the inconscient to wake ignorance. An unshaped consciousness desired light, and blank presence yearned towards distant change, as if a childlike finger laid on a cheek reminded of the endless need in things, the heedless mother of the universe, an infant longing clutched the somber vast. Arrived from the other side of boundlessness, an eye of deity pierced through the dumb deeps. A scout in a reconnaissance from the sun, it seemed amid heavy cosmic rays, the torpor of a sick and weary world, to seek for a spirit, soul and desolate, too fallen to recollect forgotten bliss. The darkness failed and slipped like a falling cloak from the reclining body of a god. A glamour from the unreached transcendency, iridescent with the glory of the unseen. A message from the unknown immortal light, a blaze upon creation's quivering edge. Dawn built her aura of magnificent hues and buried its siege of grandeur in the hour. Earth felt the imperishable passage close. The waking ear of nature heard her steps, and wideness turned to her its limitless eyes, and scattered on sealed depths her luminous smile kindled to fire the silence of the world. Here, where our half-lit ignorance skirts the gulfs, on the dumb bosom of the ambiguous earth. Here, where one knows not even the step in front, and truth has her throne on the shadowy back of doubt. On this anguished and precarious field of toils, outspread beneath some large indifferent gaze, impartial witness to our joy and bale, our prostrate soil bore the awakening ray. And Savitri too awoke among these tribes that hastened to join the brilliant summoner's chant, a narrow movement on time's deep abyss. Life's fragile littleness denied the power. The proud and conscious wideness and the bliss she had brought with her into the human form, the calm delight that waits one's soul to all, the key to the flaming door of ecstasy. Thus trapped in the gin of earthly destinies, awaiting her ordeal's hour above, outcast from her inborn felicity, accepting life's obscure your terrestrial home, hiding herself even from those she loved, the Godhead greater by a human fate. Against the evil at life's afflicted roots, her own calamity, its private sign. Of her pangs she made a mystic poignant sword. At the summons of her body's voiceless call, her strong, far-winged spirit traveled back to the yoke of ignorance and fate, back to the labor and stress of mortal days, lighting a pathway through strange symbol dreams across the ebbing of the seas of sleep.
Immobile in herself, she gathered forth. This was the day when Satyavan must die.